Hey, what's up, guys? So, happy Monday. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you all had a good weekend. I've been busy with things here. I basically got a number of projects that I've been working on. And I'm kind of at an interesting lull right now where I've got a number of balls that I'm juggling for upcoming projects, but I've got a little bit of free time. So I figured let's just kind of hang out and basically just hang out and chat. So, as far as while everybody's joining, a couple of things that I'm working on. One thing that well, actually, before I get to that, the Amazon scam thing that I talked about, I did a video about that recently. And actually, if we go take a look at that, this thing is still ongoing. So, I've been seeing like a whole ton of stuff with a lot of these detectors. So, like the Escort one, so like Max 360C Mark II for $200, Max 360 for 179. Like I've done a video about this already, talking about how this is a scam, but I just wanted to say it again because over the weekend, I still had a bunch of people who were like, "Hey, Vortex, I just saw a deal on an R8 or an R7 or an R3," and I'm like, "Guys, no, it's a scam. It's not going to work. These are like fake listings by brand new sellers who are not going to send you a detector." If you take a look there, just these random sellers like this. There's a whole bunch of them popping up. I've been reporting them to Amazon all the time. They're just listing a bunch of different stuff, different things, detectors and shelves and whatever else. None of that stuff is legit. Like, no, you're not actually going to get a detector. So, just wanted to mention this again because it's a really common thing I've been seeing. I've been reporting this to Amazon like several times a day, and it just feels like there's more sellers that keep popping up. So, like, they take down, they've been doing a good job of taking them down, but they'll take down like three or four, but then five or six more will pop up, you know? So, just wanted to say this again, even though I've been doing a video on this already. It's like, no, this stuff is not legit. No, you're not actually going to get a detector. And yes, it is a scam. They basically send you a fake tracking number. So it looks like it's delivered, but it never actually shows up. So again, Amazon's been doing a good job of like taking them down when they see it, but I'm hoping that they're going to get more proactive with like stopping all these new sellers from popping up in the first place. I think that would be really nice. So I just want to mention that again. I know I covered it in a previous video, but a lot of you guys are still mentioning in the comments like you're buying them anyway. So just if you've already placed the order, cancel it if you can and buy it at an actual price. So just wanted to do a quick PSA about that and mention that too. So as far as upcoming stuff, I know I've done a bunch of stuff with SEMA. Most all the SEMA stuff is done at this point. I mentioned I wanted to do a video with Escort, but they weren't quite ready to share yet what they wanted to do. What's up? They were still working on things at the show, and they weren't quite ready to share. They're still working on some stuff with their detectors. I had a chance to sit down and do a video with them earlier, working on getting all that stuff ready and published and whatnot, talking about like Max 360C Mark II, for example, and updates to some of their detectors. So I had a chance to talk to them about that. I know they're definitely working on it, which is really nice. Good to see. And when that video is ready, I'll have that available to share with you guys too. I'm working on a lot of stuff currently with dash cams. The VFO A139 Pro, that's one I'm really interested in. I've been doing some testing with that. This, I'm thinking, might actually be a solid contender for like the best dash cam on the market, period. This is just the box for it, obviously. But yeah, I've been liking it so far. I've been seeing some issues in beta testing, which it seems like might be limited to pre-production hardware, so they're actually sending out a new one. So I've got another one coming in for the full review. But that one, Sony Starvis 2 sensor, which should be really interesting. 4K, up to 3 channels. Like, I think it should be pretty solid. So I just installed it in my wife's car for while she's out driving today. Collecting some sample footage for us. Very nice. But I've been driving around with it for the past couple weeks or so as well myself. So definitely want to take a look at that. I've got another video coming up with like really interesting and creative dash cams, which I'm really excited about putting together. That's going to be a fun collaboration that I'm excited to share with you guys too. So fun stuff to share. A lot of the stuff, it's kind of like I'm waiting on a production unit for the A139 Pro, for example, or the collaboration actually we're planning on doing later, Escort stuff still working on. So a bunch of stuff that I'm kind of like working on, but everything is like at a bit of a pause point. So hence, here we are. Let's just kind of chat and talk about whatever it is that we want. I've kind of been experimenting with like new live streaming software. So if we want to talk about something and I want to switch to like, hey, I can show you guys, you know, a browser window at the same time. I'm like, that's cool. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while. So if we're talking about whatever it is, I can always like visually show you this on screen as well. So playing with that, been playing with the lights here as well. I'd also like to add at some point like a pop-up showing the chat on screen or when you guys do like a super chat donation or your questions pop up, I want to go ahead and have that highlighted on screen. So I'm kind of now like playing around with new software for live streaming to hopefully make this look better and more interesting and more fun and up the production value. So yeah, so I guess some stuff that I've been working on. And speaking of which, there is, what's it called? Getting into some of the questions. Ex-auto analyst is saying, anyone hear about the R8 frequency updates or firmware updates? Nothing yet. I know when I had a chance to talk to them at SEMA, they did mention they're working on that. So like Bluetooth should be coming. I have no idea when. Hopefully soon, because I know everybody's been waiting on that. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Uniden like finally getting these updates out for the R4 and the R8 to get us Bluetooth, which they've been promising, you know. So let's see, Paul. Sorry if this has been asked already, but the Escort K-band problem, is it a specific frequency only? I know they're going to want to go into that. I don't think they're quite ready to share all the detailed information about that, but they're definitely taking a look at that. I sent them my gun over the Genesis 2. They've got one as well, and I know they're definitely working on it. They're not quite ready to go into the details yet, but when they are, I think it should be cool to see. So yeah, they're definitely working on it right now, which is cool. BM, this is an interesting one. R8 versus R7. What are the differences and which one is better? In general, with stock firmware, R8 better. Longer range, better BSM filtering. I believe you've got the auto sensitivity mode to adjust the sensitivity based on speed. It can detect the GATSO as well as the photo radar. There's Bluetooth built in, which the R7 doesn't have, and no, it can't get it via firmware update. The R8 is going to support the wired control pad, which is kind of nice. So the R8, it's a better detector. I personally prefer it. That said, there is a cool third-party firmware that's out there by Mytheru, a guy in New Zealand actually, who's adding custom firmware for the R7, which is pretty cool. It's going to give you some of the features like the auto sensitivity adjustment to based on speed. There's more configurability actually with his firmware. There's additional K blocks available that you don't get with the R8. So like knocking out some of the Mazda BSMs, you can now do with the R7 with that custom firmware that you can't do with the R8. And so I've actually been driving with that for the past couple days, and I've really been liking the updates. I mentioned it in a previous video for new and updated radar detectors, and at some point I actually want to do a full video on that as well. He's been kind of tweaking things further. He's been testing things like Spectre improvements for the R7 to actually shut down the DSP and hopefully improve the RDD immunity for the R7, which is pretty cool. So some really interesting stuff there. You can take a look at it on the forums. The firmware is now available for purchase. I think it's currently for both hardware versions of the R7, but I'm really liking that as well. And it's kind of in my head changing up the dynamics of best radar detector, best one for the buck, and all that kind of stuff. Because R7 with this firmware is seeming pretty good so far. It's got some advantages over the R8, which is a more expensive detector. So it's just interesting to see kind of some of these dynamics come into play. As far as the V1, I drove with that, what was it, last night I think? The V1 Gen 2 with the new update. I actually surprisingly got some Ka-band falses around 34.3, 34.4. I had custom frequencies turned off so I can scan all of it. But now that I tested it out, I was kind of surprised. The latest update was supposed to help with that, and it seems like reading over the forums, people are reporting reduced instances of Ka falses, which is really nice. But people are still reporting them nonetheless, and some of them even on police radar frequencies like 33.8 or 35.5. And so it looks like this latest update is helping reduce some of these Ka falses for the V1, but it doesn't seem like it's completely eliminated it yet. So that's, I guess, an improvement, though I would like to see Ka falsing fixed for the V1. I mean, great detector for sure, but like Ka falsing, man, I'm not cool with that. So I'm glad to see that there's improvements on it nonetheless. Car Guy 11, what's going on with Thea? I don't know. Supply chain issues. Redensa's not saying anything, so we're all just like you. We're all just kind of hanging out here waiting and trying to figure out what's going on. So unfortunately, we don't really know. Hopefully, they come out with it at some point because yeah, it sounds very promising, but they gotta release it, you know. So we'll see how that goes. Evil always wins. I did ask Escort, you're asking the 360C ramp up. I did ask him about the ramp up as well. That'll be covered, I guess, in the video once we're ready to share that. But yeah, the Escort definitely is aware of those kind of issues and whatnot. But again, as far as when that kind of stuff is going to come out, it's up to Escort. They're aware on it. So, yeah. Max Fish. I ordered a scam detector that said it was sold by Amazon. I looked at the screenshots and it said that at the purchase screen it wasn't Amazon, even though the listing said it was. Interesting. I have seen some stuff. Let's see if I can actually reproduce this. Let's see. We'll switch over here to the browser. Something that I've noticed sometimes is the seller that you buy from sometimes will actually change. So like, for example, if I try to look at this, let's see if I can reproduce it on the fly, 228. If I go pull up the listing, sometimes it'll show up a different price and a different seller. So let's see. All this stuff's going to change. Here's Max 360, 179, 179. It's not doing it now. Sometimes I have noticed, like if I go try to pull it up from one seller, it'll pop up on another one. So I'll have to play around with it. But basically, I have seen stuff sometimes where you're like pulling it up on one seller, and then when you go to pull up the listing, it shows a different one. So I guess when you go to buy it, make sure that it actually says, like when you're hitting the buy now button, it's from Amazon, and then double check the when you actually go to purchase, it should say that as well. Sometimes with some of these things, like Escort or Uniden or whoever, you can just buy it directly from the manufacturer, and that'll help you avoid some of this hassle. Like when you go to buy the detectors, like I'll link to multiple places. I know Amazon is super popular. I like them. They're generally pretty good. This scam thing is annoying. But if you typically just go like from Escort or Uniden's website directly, that is going to help you avoid some of this kind of stuff too. And for the Valentine, only buy it from Valentine. Like the only people who sell it on Amazon are going to be people reselling it, or I guess scammers. Valentine, if you want a warranty and all that kind of stuff, you have to buy it directly from them. People will buy it on Amazon and then flip it at a profit a lot of times, so you pay more than full MSRP and get no warranty. So like, just buy the Valentine directly from the manufacturer. Escort and Unidens and Rodensos, you can buy those from the manufacturer too. And for those of you guys who have bought one, try to cancel your order. If you can't, then you have to wait for it to get delivered. It's not going to get delivered, and then you can go through Amazon and like get your money back and stuff. So yeah, TT. Hey Vortex, will you ever get a chance to show us the TrueCam 2? Yeah, I'd love to get my hands on a TrueCam 2. I haven't had one yet, but if anybody who's watching this, if you've got one that you can send out, send it over to me. It's an LTI TrueCam with a camera hooked up to it, so officers can actually get like photos and videos of cars that they're targeting. That would be pretty cool. I'd love to do a video on that. So yeah, if any of you guys have one, get in touch with me. I'll do a video on that. I'll tell you right now, over the next month or so, things are going to be really busy with end of the year compilation. So like best radar detectors on the market, best laser jammers, best dash cameras, some like VFO A139 Pro, which I think could potentially, assuming everything looks good with the production hardware, could be like the best radar detector, or best dash cam rather. And so for end of the year, I'm focused on like end of the year compilations, Black Friday stuff, that kind of stuff. So some other things like setup tutorials are kind of on the back burner right now. Like I don't currently have a setup tutorial for the Max 360C Mark II, which just came back from testing a few minutes ago. The Whistler, for example, all that stuff is on the back burner for the time being. So just a heads up as far as how that works. T-Flow, afternoon Vortex, any updated news on Thea? Drinking game every time somebody asks about Thea. Timofey Gorovich, what's up Vortex? Which radar detector is best for Israel? 33.8 and laser. Fortunately, I couldn't tell you. I've done videos on this multiple times, but like things are different overseas, different radar detectors, different hardware versions, and different firmwares and pricing and laws and all this kind of stuff. So I generally recommend asking somebody who's from Israel. Hop on the forums. There's good information about that. So ask somebody who's an expert in your area. Unfortunately, what I can tell you about American detectors, testing in the United States, may or may not apply. Laser jammer stuff is going to be different all over the world, different distributors, all that stuff. So yeah. Jonathan, any news on the Amazon scam situation? That's what I covered kind of in the beginning of the video, so I know it's live stream. I'm not sure if you can rewind live streams. Hopefully you can, but I'm definitely going into that. Let's see. Mike Ross, I've got a 2021 Palisade. I've got 5 ALPs total. Okay, or 5 heads. So I've got 2 plus a TX in the front and 2 regular in the rear. Is that a good setup? I live in Arizona. I think that should be okay. I would personally like to do the second, if you can get a second TX head to put it in the middle and then push the 2 regular ones out to the rear. I don't think you've got Dragon Eye in Arizona, but I do find that that helps. So like if they're on an overpass or something, that TX head can help. So on SUVs, I do like to have 3 heads per side just because it's such a large surface area. And something like a Palisade, it's a bigger SUV. Cool, by the way. I've been seeing a ton of them in my area. If you can get a rear TX, I think it would be helpful, though with the ALPs, they tend to be pretty sensitive, and against a lot of the easier guns, you should be able to get by with 2 regular heads. We don't have Dragon Eye, so that'll be helpful. But yeah, typically for SUVs, I like to do 3 per side. That's what I do on my car. It's usually the way to go. T-Flow, what frequencies have you seen the Washington State Patrol use? And also, Lil Skiba, what's the best radar detector for us in Washington? There's nothing super specific about Washington. We don't have photo radar. We don't need a stealth detector, that kind of stuff. So it's just whatever you want. I mean, Valentine is great out here. Redenso's great. Escorts are great. Unitons are great. A lot of this is personal preference. It's not like one detector is going to be significantly better than another. A lot of detectors these days have great range. A lot of them have pretty good blind spot filtering. So it comes down to, what kind of Bluetooth functionality do you want? Do you want Wi-Fi? Do you want auto lockouts? That kind of stuff, right? Like, that's what it comes down to. And so, unfortunately, there's not like one detector that's the best. A lot of times it really is subjective and personal preference. It's like saying, what's the best car to drive in Washington State? And I'm like, man, I don't know. Drive what you want, drive what makes you happy. We can talk about the pros and cons of the detectors, but ultimately it's like what you want. There's not just one choice that's somehow going to be the best for everybody. So I wish there was sometimes. I know ALP is kind of like that for laser. With radar, it can kind of sometimes be like that with Unitons just to get the best bang for the buck. It's a lot of times they offer a ton of value for the dollar. So if you're looking at like R4, R7, R8, I mean, they're solid choices. It's hard to find something else that can offer that level of capability for the price point. You can definitely find stuff like a V1 Gen 2 with JBV1. I mean, paired with the app, that's awesome. Or if you want the Wi-Fi stuff, sure, you've got Escort. Or if you want Bluetooth, Uniden still doesn't offer that. So they're not the best in every situation, but like I'm finding them to be kind of the best bang for the buck typically. So R7 with the custom firmware or R8, for example, are 2 pretty awesome choices. Those are 2 that I've been going back and forth between recently. Again, avoid the $129 deals on Amazon. Buy them for their actual price so you actually get the detector. And then that'll be a good option. So, Way Up Dude. Hey, what's up from Woodstock? That's pretty cool. Very familiar with Woodstock. Woodstock, Alpharetta, Roswell, Marietta, that whole area. So, what's up? Max Fish. Best setup for Bay Area, California. Lots of hills and winding roads. You're going to be primarily Ka-band in that area. I have heard occasional reports here and there of K-band. But for the most part, it seems like you're, especially in California, a lot of Ka-band. And so you can even shut off K-band a lot of times and just get by with Ka. I know that's pretty popular. Though you'll probably want to check on the forums for people who have occasionally been reporting some K-band. I think in the Bay Area there was one report of K, but it's mostly Ka. Other than that, if you want something with sensitivity, sure. Your V1s, your Escorts, your Unitons, they all have great sensitivity. And if you're shutting off K-band, you don't need some of the additional filtering options for some of the higher end detectors. So, yeah. Alex in the chat is saying California is 99.99% 34/7. That is nice. I believe the CHP has like deals with Stalker or something. I don't know if that applies to like all the city police. You guys would know better. I've heard of like the what's it called? Some of the park rangers may run like 35.5 or something. But again, just things that I've read online. All the stuff from like specific to different areas that I don't drive in. I'm usually deferring to you guys who like live and drive there, and know the area as well. So that's why a lot of times I'm like, hey, just go check on the forums. It's an awesome resource. Let's see. BM, thanks for answering my other question. Just one more. Does highway or city driving make a big difference when choosing a detector? Because almost all of my driving is done on highways. Yes. So when you say highways, if it's highways that you drive on regularly versus you're always driving on new roads, the reason I say that is if you're driving in the city, you're typically going to want some additional filtering options, especially GPS. So things like your low-speed muting or your GPS lockouts. So if you pass the same grocery store all the time, like it's nice to have the detector learn that and filter it out for you, right? On the highway, that's not going to be as relevant, especially low-speed muting. The GPS lockouts can be nice. I do find that there's certain stretches of highways where I'm driving past a shopping center, my detectors will false to K-band. And so I like having the GPS lockouts, even for highway driving. If you're driving regularly on new highways to different cities and stuff, okay, fine. You don't need the lockouts as much. Maybe just low-speed muting. When you get off the highway, you go get gas or whatever. I totally get that. So let's do this. Boom, 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 boom. Care of that. Cool. Knock it out. Boom. Some spam. Cool. Great. So as far as that, I do find the GPS lockouts to be useful for stationary falses. They're primarily in the city, sometimes also useful on the highway. I really like it. I don't like driving with detectors without GPS. You do have some popular detectors like the Uniden R1, great backroad highway-only detectors, but I don't know. I find GPS to be super helpful, so I like GPS detectors. So that's kind of some of the city highway stuff. The GPS can also be useful for things like red light camera alerts. Cool, but probably going to get that from Waze or Google Maps anyway, so whatever. So for highway driving, you're mostly focused on range, BSM filtering, not as much the GPS-based stuff. Let's see, GT Pro. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay. R8, better performance, custom firmware stuff. Coming back to Alex, K-band is a unicorn in California. Yeah, there is some of that here in Washington State as well. It's not quite to the extent of California, but we do occasionally have K-band here. Some smaller city police, some Washington State Patrol up and down I-5 around like smaller towns and stuff, maybe over the pass, but it's mostly Ka-band here as well, which is kind of nice. That's also part of the reason why a lot of my focusing or my testing is done on Ka-band. I do sometimes test Ka-band or K-band, and it's nice to discover maybe some alerts with certain K-band delays with certain detectors and whatnot. So I definitely do test it, and I get it. A lot of people encounter K-band. That's also something I've seen with like Spectre testing. I do the Spectre testing, and that's easy to test, right? And I like being able to test it and do videos and stuff because historically speaking, there hasn't been a lot of good Spectre testing information. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, for most people in the US, that's not actually that important. The company that makes Spectres has gone out of business and no longer producing them. And so like that stuff isn't going to be super critical, I think, moving forward. However, for those of you who really need a stealth detector, you need a stealth detector. And I totally understand that. So like it's not something that I need, but I get that for those of you guys who do need it, it's very important. So like not something I want to spend a ton of time testing. It's easy to test. I wish BSM filtering was as easy to test. But I do it from time to time. So yeah, just something I've seen with that. Let's see. Peter Murphy. Can I use my old hardwired V1 Gen 1 power cable with the Gen 2? Yes, as long as it's not a super old power cable. I have seen some issues reported in the past with like really old hardwire cables causing issues. So if it's a relatively new, and I don't know kind of when that date cutoff is, if it's a newer one, it should be just fine. I use my V1 Gen 1 hardwire in my car with the V1 Gen 2 with Uniteds and Escorts and Redensos and Valentines and everything. So like, it's fine, but yeah. So... Dragon Man, is the Uniden R4 good for Pennsylvania? I think it's, yeah, I mean, you'll have good range. You've got, Pennsylvania, I believe, is, what, all K-band still? Do you guys have Ka-band yet? You've got good performance on K-band. You've got good responsiveness. It should do well against guns like the Falcon HR, which I believe they do use up there. So I do like those. Some of the Escorts and the Valentines do have more delays on K-band than the Unidens do, I think in an effort to try to get some of the filtering. Unidens do seem to be more responsive on K-band, so I've been liking them. And then you can add, like with the R4, when it adds Bluetooth support, you'll be able to pair it with highway radar to add some additional filtering. So that'll be nice. But I think it would be a pretty good choice, at least based on what I know. For those of you guys, if you're in the chat and you drive in Pennsylvania and you've got a lot more experiences on some of the nuances for that state, please feel free to comment in the chat. Jason, if you had a nickel for every time someone asked you about Thea, would you have a new Thea? I'd probably be able to retire at this point. I'd be done. No, I mean, I do this for fun. Like, I'm literally just hanging out with you guys chatting. Like, I do this for fun anyway, you know, but that would be pretty awesome. GT Pro, how do you know for certain when an alert is a false? I often struggle figuring it out. Yeah, there's not a good, reliable way. I mean, for things like K-band, you can look at the frequency and immediately see 24168. Oh, that's probably a Honda. 24199, Honda, Acura, Chrysler. There's probably something like that. 24124, there's probably CX-5 right in front of me. With certain frequencies, you can figure that kind of stuff out. But police can and do transmit on the same frequency ranges, so it's not 100%. Ka-band, you can be a little bit more selective with that because there's fewer falses on Ka-band, and you can start to tell a lot more based on frequency. So that's one of my go-tos, is looking at the frequency of the signal. There's also things like signal strength and ramp up over time. So if the signal starts off weak and then you start kind of like coming up over a hill and suddenly the signal gets really strong, you're like, oh, okay. The hill is no longer blocking my signal. I can pick it up much more strongly. that sounds much more legitimate as well, right? So you're looking at things like the change in signal strength over time, the frequency of the signal, the arrows. I mean, there's a lot of little things like that that in my head I'm doing the analysis because, well, we don't have something like the, or a detector that can be like ideally almost 100% with this kind of accuracy. And I don't know if the will be, but it's hopefully one of the closest we get to that. So there's not a good way, but a lot of it is just kind of like looking at the signal itself and different characteristics to try to determine it yourself. And some detectors are getting better than others at that kind of stuff, but there's still trade-offs and whatnot. So it's not 100%, but those are kind of some of the things at least that I do. Connor, any opinion on the Redline 360 versus the R8? I believe I've done a comparison about that already. I prefer the R8 just for the responsiveness stuff. I like that more. I like the ramp up better on the R8 as well. It does a better job of communicating signal strength, like I was just talking about, over time. The Redline likes to ramp up super strong really early. So despite the Redline having better feel and like build quality, it's got Wi-Fi. The Bluetooth is already up and running. It can display the speed limit on display. Like it's got some of those cool bonus features. But the R8, I think, currently does a better job at like detecting radar, which is why I buy a radar detector. Right? Having a speed limit on the display, I mean, it's great. I like that feature. I use it all the time on the Redline. But, like, I've also run Google Maps and Waze. And so, like, I want the best radar detection possible. So that's my priority. That's what I'm focusing on. I picked the R8. Can that change with the future firmware update? Of course. But at least taking a look at how things are today. Yeah. And then, let's see, next. Another question about Redenso Thea. Okay, talked about that. Southwest Florida car guy. Pennsylvania uses VASCAR, I believe. I think they do, yes. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with VASCAR, it's basically like the simplest way is a stopwatch. You've got 2 different points, A and B, and the officer has some sort of stopwatch and just times how long it goes from A to B. They can do it with a stopwatch. Some radar guns have the ability to actually do this kind of stuff without transmitting radar. It's just a timer, like a stopwatch built in. You've got some airplanes that are fancy VASCAR. They're just tracking you from point A to point B. Same thing. The big thing about VASCAR, however it's implemented, is it's not using radar. It's not using LiDAR or laser. Your radar detector will not alert to VASCAR, and so you actually have to keep an eye out for that. So whether you're looking at the lines on the road for aircraft stuff, or you're running an app like Highway Radar JBV1 that tracks planes, or you're running Waze to track where the officers are, camped out, that kind of stuff, you do need other tactics for VASCAR specifically because no radar detector won't help you for that. So, Timothy, can BSM affect police speed testing? What do you mean? I mean, detectors generally can alert to both like BSMs and police radar, and sometimes there can be. Usually, it's okay. It's traditionally not a huge issue. I guess it is possible in some edge cases for something to happen, but it's not something that I usually encounter. I mean, detectors can alert to multiple signals at the same time, so even if there's a BSM signal present, yeah. I mean disturbed. No, BSM, it's not going to get in the way of like police radar. I mean, there's tons of radar on the road now. Police radar, BSMs, door opener, speed signs, like there's a lot of stuff. So, yeah. I've got red light cameras turned on the R4, but it doesn't alert. Waze does. Is that normal? Yes. So you're going to see different databases. Some databases are better than others in how many red light cameras do they alert to? How often is the database updated? How many non-red light cameras is it reporting to because somebody saw a camera for traffic stuff and thought it's a red light camera, even though it doesn't issue tickets? So you can see false alerts. You can see legitimate alerts. You'll see things like sometimes directional enforcement, where I think the Unidens alert to every direction. Escorts actually pay attention to what direction you're traveling. So like if the speed camera enforces this direction but not that direction, it will actually like have different notifications. So maybe it only alerts you this way, not that way. Some apps can do that too. So it's not as simple as like which one is better because there's so many different little variables to that. So yes, you will see differences. And those are, I guess, some of the reasons why. Nick, any chance of updating the how to use JBV1 given how many changes have been implemented? There's so many things that I haven't done yet that doing another JBV1 video would be very low priority. I still need to do Whistler, Max 360C Mark II. There's new stuff coming out. Like, I don't think I'm going to be doing another JBV1 video because a lot of it is so similar. I'd say just yeah, go to the forums and keep an eye out there. And there's always new stuff. You can always take a look. There's explanations for settings. A lot of it is just go through the settings and start looking over it. Because it changes so much, that's hard for me to like consistently just keep updating and stay on top of. Yeah. Pluses and minuses to like constant updates and new features being added. But no, I would probably do something that I haven't done yet at all versus doing another JBV1 video. Let's see. Slow hand. I have a very early V1 and I've had no complaints. What would the R8 give me over my V1? Longer range, better false alert filtering, GPS, almost RDD immune, but not really. Basically better range and better false alert filtering and GPS. I know there is other stuff like photo radar detection. Yeah, Bluetooth should be supported someday versus if you have a really old V1, there's no Bluetooth supported at all, which is going to add you support for things like JBV1 or V1 Driver, those apps that add a ton of functionality to give you the GPS stuff. So if you have a V1, I think you need, what, version 3.893 or newer? 3.892? I forget exactly when Bluetooth was added, I think. 3.892, and then, I forget. You need a new enough V1 to support the Bluetooth stuff and then get like the Bluetooth accessory to get that. But that's probably where I would start. If you can add that in, grab the Bluetooth module, pair a phone, and add the functionality. But yes, the R8 can do the GPS stuff without a phone and longer range and better false alert filtering. So those are some of the biggest things that I would notice as far as differences. So coming back to the Vascar stuff. GT Pro. I've seen Vascar used in a surprising amount, just barely outside the California Bay Area, thanks to Highway Radar. Interesting. Or outside the Santa Clara County, I mean. Interesting. So when you say Vascar, how do you see him do Vascar? Because like I've seen it in radar and laser guns, you know, but like, is it just you're driving past them and they're not shooting radar? That's Vascar? Or like, how do you actually see them doing it? I'm curious because that's always an interesting thing. Since you're not getting alerts from your detector, how do you know for sure that they're running Vascar, you know, not just doing whatever else in their car? Let's see. Take a look back through the chat. Where can I find a test for the DFR5? Google it. I don't know. I mean, I think I've done some. Maybe back when it was called the LRD 450 or 750 or whatever the heck that thing was. We did some years ago back when it came out, but for the most part, I don't really bother with testing some of those, but search on the forums. I think you can find some tests on that. Martin Fallenstedt. If you were driving in Europe, what laser jammer would you use? No idea. ALP? I don't know. I mean, again, you've got other laser jammers there. It's set up differently. It's configured differently. I would assume ALP based on what I know here in the US, but again, you've got other options for Europe. They work differently. You've got other laser guns there that we don't have. Ask a European. Head to the forums. Ask a European. What I know in the US may or may not apply. So I feel like I'm saying this all the time. I even do videos on this kind of stuff, like constantly. Well, not constantly, but periodically. And I still get the questions all the time. So I would love to give you guys more information, but really for that kind of stuff, you'll want to ask somebody who lives and drives in your area. I know the laws are much more strict in Europe, so you may also need to consider things with like whether it's hiding or installation and placement. Like it's very different over there. So really for that kind of stuff, asking me, it's not going to be the best way to go. You'll want to ask somebody else who is more familiar with what you need in your area. Let's see. Okay, so coming back to the Vascar stuff. I don't know for sure if it's Vascar, but they have speed enforcement by aircraft. I thought it's the same thing. Gotcha. Okay, yeah, if they're doing it by aircraft, it's typically Vascar that way. It was interesting. I remember seeing like some videos, at least here in Washington, instead of doing just like point-to-point calculations with the calculator, now the camera can like automatically track it. So it just tracks a car and it sees how fast you're going and the speed kind of updates over time. Pretty cool stuff, actually. There's videos on there if you want to check it out. So again, your radar detector doesn't alert, but kind of like more sophisticated ways of monitoring speed without having to like point A to point B, stopwatch, and then do a little division or whatever. So yeah. Cool. I'll probably need to head off here in a little bit. I've got it's parent-teacher conference time, so doing all that. So got another one of those coming up here this afternoon. I actually did one for my son this morning, and then daughter's coming up later today. So parent-teacher conference day. The Tech Duke is asking any idea on firmware time frame for the new Max 360C Mark II? Nope. And I think at this point, even if Escort tells me something, I'm not going to tell you unless they want to give a time frame. That's on them. But like all this stuff takes longer than usual. Look how long Thea's taken to come out. Look how long R9 took way longer than expected to even get announced. All this kind of stuff. Yeah, who knows if they're going to counter bugs. I don't know when they're going to do it. Who knows when the software guys will get it posted. Ian, apparently Max 3, they just released firmware version 1.5. Cool. Great. Is there a changelog as far as what's posted on that? Let's see. Haven't heard about that one, so I wonder if somebody's posted about that yet. I have to look it up later. Wait, no, that's the Max 3. I'm looking it up. No, 1.5, that was a while ago? Was that just now? No, I see an older post from like 2021, actually, where somebody's talking about that. Yeah, like here's something I'm pulling up here. Max 3 firmware 1.4 and 1.5 release notes. So this is 2021, and just kind of taking a look through here. Let's see, 1.5. I don't know if they updated to add that, but Max 3 came with 1.5 out of the box, and this was August 2021. So it doesn't look like that's a recent thing. But again, just kind of Googling it and going as we go. So yeah, it doesn't look like 1.5 is new. So again, just checking it out on the spot, right? Let's see. John Finkowski. Currently using the Redline 360C in both cars. Love the range. Escort at SEMA said that I missed you by an hour. Oh, yeah, I was at the show the whole time, just kind of floating around all day, every day. They said the Redline has the best range. Of their detectors, yes. Is it worth changing to the R8? I covered that earlier in the video. I've done dedicated videos on that too. Range isn't really the deciding factor on that. They're both good. I mean, you can find some differences and whatnot. And yeah. So. So second person. Okay, so I guess a little behind the scenes stuff. Prazik, what did you do to straighten your teeth if you don't mind? So funny story. When I was in elementary school, we were at PE and we were playing street hockey. And one of the kids was playing hockey and hit me in the face and actually knocked out one of my front teeth. So this is actually a fake tooth. There's like a little stump left and there's a crown that's on top of it. I've had several crowns over the years where like one falls off or I eat an apple or something and breaks off and I got a new one. So that tooth is actually dead. I had a root canal and so there's a fake crown on there. And I have another crown now. It broke off over, I think, last winter or something, last holiday. It broke off again and I needed to get another replacement. When I went in to go to get another replacement, they looked at the other tooth next to it and it was like kind of cracking somehow. I have no idea how. And so they wound up actually having to like drill off that tooth and put a crown on that one. So now actually both of those two teeth are fake. And so at the time when they're replacing one, they did the other one at the same time. They can kind of like close the gap. And so if you go look at some of my older videos, you'll see at a time when like I still had that tooth and there's a little more gap between my teeth. But then when they fixed it, I had now like two fake front teeth. And so two crowns on the front. And so now it looks way better. At first I was kind of bummed out of like, oh man, it stinks. But yeah, so it's not Invisalign, it's anything. I did have braces in high school. That helped, but now I've got like two crowns in my front teeth. So yay, I guess. But at least it looks better, so that's cool. So fun fact, I guess. Let's see. Chris Cloud installed the Safe and Sound hardwire kit with the mute button for the R7. It's so good. Yeah, they do some cool stuff with like custom hardwire cables for lots of detectors, especially if the manufacturers don't offer them. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Prazik, coming back to the teeth thing. Looks good, man. Just wondering, since I have Invisalign and wondering if you had the same. Yeah, it wasn't braces. It was, well, I had new fake teeth made, I guess. But no, I do wear like neck guards and retainers at night too. Just braces. I guess you got to wear them forever. Timothy, it's 1:30 in the morning in Israel. Best time to talk about radar detectors. Before going to bed, I just wanted to thanks for the channel. Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, thanks for hanging out at 1:30 in the morning. It's 3:30 p.m. here, so yeah, thanks for hanging out. Very late night for you. Radar guy, are you ever going to create your own radar detector? No. I have had several offers from different radar detector companies to come join them and help create a radar detector. And like, you know, they would brand it as like a Vortex thing or whatever, just to help them create it. And for some of those, I actually did think about it pretty seriously because I'm like, well, hey, I want an awesome radar detector. And if I can have something hands-on where I can have more say and control in creating something that I want, that would be really cool. The reason I didn't do it, ultimately, two reasons. Number one, I really like being the person who just kind of like sits back and tests everything, right? And I think if I now represent any brand for any reason, that loses my ability to sit back and say, well, I'm just going to review everything as objectively as I can. I'm a human. I'm going to have some inherent biases and stuff. But I'm going to sit back and do the best job that I can to be like objective and clear on all the brands, pros and cons. Here they are, right? I think if I was to test any one of them, I would lose that capability. But then I would get a cool detector out of it and hopefully make it. But there's no guarantee that that would happen. Like if you take a look at all the detectors, there's a lot of engineers and a lot of passionate enthusiasts working on this, but like implementing and executing is easier said than done. Any technical project, like it's tough, whether you're designing a detector or a phone or a YouTube channel or a video, like it's a lot harder than you would think to get everything perfect and dialed in. And so I don't know if I would ever be able to be successful doing that. And I don't know, I really like being the person who's just kind of testing everything and just kind of hopefully someday somebody will come out with something awesome that nails every checkbox, you know? But yeah, that's kind of why I've decided not to do it. So, GT Pro, do you have a video that talks over identifying false alerts? I've done some stuff going over like frequencies and arrows and whatnot. I don't think I've done that. I mean, I guess I could. Sure, just kind of going over some tips and tricks and whatnot, but yeah, could be an option. It's an idea. Add it to the video list. Long list of videos. Scott, I dropped my R7. Now the screen is blank. Oh, that's a bummer. Still functions otherwise. What would you do? Send it for repair? Try hitting the like the brightness button on the side. Try changing the display brightness. Maybe it got set to off or something. I mean, but otherwise, yeah, you're probably just going to have to send it in for repair. Kind of unfortunate. So reach out to Uniden. Send it in. They'll repair it or replace it or whatever it is and take care of you. So, I mean, yeah. Check the brightness. Sometimes I see people like accidentally turn off the brightness, or maybe something got banged. Their display's turned off. So if you can still hear the alerts, but you're not seeing them, maybe try that first. If not, then yeah, maybe cable got knocked loose, maybe display is malfunctioning. I don't know. So yeah, cool. All right, I'll probably hang out for a few more minutes, then I'm gonna have to take off here. But fun to do a Monday afternoon or middle of the night if you're in Israel live stream. But yeah. So as far as that, is there anything I'm curious? So that was actually an interesting idea, like doing a video going over false alerts. For end of the year, definitely want to focus on things like best radar detector, dash cam, laser jammer, all that kind of stuff. Black Friday, of course, is going to be a big one. Is there any stuff that you guys think is like super important that I haven't focused on yet? I know there's some things like settings guides for some newer detectors that I put on the back burner intentionally to focus on other things in the meantime. VFO A139 Pro, want to do that. I've got another kind of fun dashcam video that I'm going to be working on that I want to get onto. But if there's any ideas for stuff that you guys think would be super interesting and that a lot of people would really enjoy, let me know kind of down in the chat too. I'll hang out for a few more minutes to keep an eye out on that. Chris, what are the best options other than an external speaker for a setup that will interrupt the radio and play some type of alert via the car speakers? There are some detectors specifically for custom installs that do have like a wire that you can wire into the radio that will turn off your radio, kind of mute your stereo while the alert is playing. Usually that's a custom install thing, not windshield mount. If you're doing something over Bluetooth, sometimes Bluetooth can take over your car stereo. There can be a little bit of latency doing that, so you'll get a delay on the alerts, but that is a way to also take over the car stereo and mute the audio. I would just turn up the volume, and then I'd manually turn down the stereo myself. I just do it myself. I'm wondering if there's a way to get a windshield mount with an external cable out. So like when you get an alert that triggers a stereo mute, you might be able to do something like that custom, but I don't think there's anything factory out of the box that lets you do that. Maybe if you tap into like a custom hardwire cable or something, and one of the cables that you get like a trigger out of one of the cables, you can tie that into the stereo or something. If you're handy with that, that could be an option, but I don't know if there's anything out of the box for windshield mounts that can let you do that. So interesting ideas. Mike R. I currently own an R7 and I want to buy an R8. Are the mounts interchangeable? Yep, you can pop it off. I know they did start changing it. I think like the R3s, the old mounts were a little bit different. R7 and R8, they use the same one and the tongue is in a different spot than like the R3 and the R4. So yeah, you should be able to just swap them out interchangeably. Just the only thing is don't go buy a $129 R8 on Amazon and think you're going to get it. Like, get what it actually is. I know it was on sale recently for like $629 or something. But if we pull it up now, like, let's see. Browser. So let's see. Just pull it up here again. So type in Unit and R8. Of course, we got one of these scam ones. So 305 here. Just, yeah, it's another Chinese seller. So I would either just go down here and like get it from Amazon directly. I would just do that. Or I would go buy it directly from like United's website or something. So that's the way that I would go for that. Oops, let's see, make sure you guys can see it instead of on screen. So yeah, you go down here, other sellers on Amazon, just buy it from Amazon.com. So that's the way that I would do it if it was me, or again, just buy directly from United's website. I've got links to all that kind of stuff. My videos, reviews, website, all that. So that's where you'll find it. But last one, let's see. Chris Cloud, possible multiple positions for the third channel camera. Add in cables. I'm not sure what your question is. Add in extra cables? Are you asking like what's a good third channel camera? Like besides front and rear? You mean like interior or telephoto or side? So I'm not quite sure what you're asking. So we'll come back to that when you can get a little more clarity. Let's see. Patrick, I got my first radar detector yesterday, the R8. Congratulations. So I'd love to see more content about that. Hope Bluetooth brings some nice features when unlocked. Yeah, when that comes out, man. Highway radar stuff. It'll be interesting to see kind of what happens and what all they put in the next public firmware beyond just Bluetooth. We'll have to see. But yeah, that's also, we'll see, I guess. Still waiting on the dash cam question. So let's see. Okay. Muyad Dize. I'm running an R3, everything off except KA on the top right side, and running a Max 360C, everything on the lower left side of the windshield. Any opinions? Yeah, pick one detector and run just one. I've done a video actually talking about how detectors can interfere, especially detectors like that. Max 360C, it's not designed to be stealth. It's definitely going to have emissions. I think maybe even in the video that I did, putting two detectors together like this, I think I even used like a Max 360C and an R3 or something. They will interfere. Even if you start turning off some of the stuff like that, pick one detector, run just one. Don't run two detectors on the windshield. There are some edge cases and use cases I've seen people get away with, but like for the most part, just run one detector at a time and leave it at that. So let's see, Krutik. Tested the firmware for the V1 Gen 2 for the KA falses. Seems it's improved. Yes, some people are reporting that. I drove with it yesterday. I got 4 KA bogeys. One of them got J out, threw a J out, and then it ramped back down. So I was getting KA falses on mine with the latest update. I didn't get any today. I did get one yesterday. But for the most part, from what I've seen online, people are reporting that it's an improvement, but not a complete fix. So that's what it seems to be so far. I do have to take off here in a bit, so I'm kind of waiting for the last question, but I think that was just the main stuff. We touched on that with the dash cam stuff. So, okay, cool. All right, well, I guess that's it for now. Thanks so much, everybody, for hanging out on a random Monday afternoon. Hope you guys are doing great. I've got some fun projects that I'm working on to come up after this, and that's it for now. So, thanks so much, everyone. Hope you guys are doing great, and I'll catch you later.